great hero in Irish history, and he was a relatively young man, but he cut his hair short, and as the style of the French revolutionaries, they called them croppies because they cropped their hair, and so on. And they chased him down, and he actually was shot, killed in a tenement. In a poor, he kind of disappeared into the poor area in Belfast, in Dublin rather. So it's kind of long history there. But I mean, and by the way, their townhouse, the Fitzgeralds, the Leinster House, because they were, Lord Leinster, is today the House of Parliament in Ireland. That's where the Dáil resides, and they chose that when the the building that was built specifically for the Irish Parliament and actually housed the Irish Landlords Parliament that I refer to there in College Green. Beautiful, wonderful, imposing building, one of the great buildings of Dublin. And they went right by it and went up and have used, and to this day use the Fitzgerald's house, because they would not occupy the old English building. It's now the Bank of Ireland. It's a very imposing building. I don't know, those of you who've been to Dublin probably know where it is. It's colonnade in front, beautiful building, right opposite Trinity College. But anyway, so just in case any of you get the feeling that somehow this Catholic Protestant thing, it really wasn't. It was not necessary. It could have happened here. There always has been that sort of, it could have happened easy. But whatever there is some kind of a split, the English understood that very well. Divide and conquer. You just get them fighting among each other, and they'll do the work for you. So I really want to sort of stress that there was a tremendous amount of cooperation. Wolfe Tone, who of course is our George Washington, but he didn't succeed. George Washington did. Was a Presbyterian, of course, but he was secretary of the Catholic Convention, it was called. And what's interesting about that is that the word convention at the time had strong Republican revolutionary overtones. It was probably called convention or something like that. But the French Parliament, the French Convention, in Paris for the Republic was the Convention. It was known as the Convention. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yes. How did you spell it? Yes. Yes, of course, to convene. Yeah, but how would you have said that in French? Was it
Convention?
Convention. Yeah, something like that. So when the Catholic, so the fact that there was a Catholic convention in Ireland and had a Presbyterian secretary. He was secretary to it, and he was a very successful Dublin barrister. Even though he was in Belfast, well, that's because they employed him up there. So the interaction between the two were very, very compatible, because they had similar interests.
Wouldn't that have scared the English all to pieces?
To death, absolutely, scared the heck out of them, because you could see how threatening it was. First of all, this was at a time when Dublin was the second city of the empire. I mean, it was not a dirt street Tijuana. Excuse me, I didn't mean to insult Tijuana or anywhere else. Can we scrub that, please? No, but I mean, no, I didn't really mean to. But I mean, it was a gay, in those days, meant the proper, a gay city. I'm sure there was a few of those too.
Not quite like San Francisco.
Not quite like that. No, not quite like that. But not a total gay bleeds.
Lively.
Pardon?
Lively.
Well, it was. Well, there were several of the great composers of the age came over and performed there. It was absolutely one of the places that you went. What was there was one particular piece of classical music that was performed for the first time there. What is it? Oh my goodness. Couldn't have been
Was it
Wagner.
Haydn?
Was it Haydn's?
It was a piece by Haydn.
Oh, was it a piece by Haydn?
I remember something, seeing something about
Yes.
it this summer, and I don't recall what it was. But
Yeah. Was it
a
Haydn?
piece by Haydn, and it was first,
Yeah, it was first performed in Dublin.
like a nocturne or something.
Oh, it's a major piece. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I don't recall.
But it gives you an idea, or gives you a feel that a world-class composer would choose to unveil his work in Dublin and so on. So it was very much part of the cultural scene. I won't say right up with Vienna, but certainly was. So it's so what I'm saying is, when you put that together with this equally affluent merchant class that was developing, and in many ways had encouraged America, because they were trading with each other backwards and forwards. You can see how threatened England felt. And it's interesting too, by the way, I'm a great reader of Edmund Burke, even though he's not my favourite guy, but he's fascinating, one of the most fascinating guys of the time, because he and Thomas Paine are the complete polar opposites. But it's so interesting to see them going at each other and to read them. But interestingly enough, Edmund Burke, who was absolutely a giant of his age, he dominated the British Parliament throughout that period, and still is in many ways. He was very passionate in favour of Irish independence at the time, because he actually believed that it was progressive for the British Parliament and the British people to he was of course very friendly to the American colonies as well, and he was in favour of their independence. He says, give them independence, let's be their friends, and let's work. Of course that came in later with Australia and so on, and Canada, but it was revolutionary at the time. No, those are second class people. Once you leave the shores, once you get on the ship, you become a second class citizen. So he was very progressive, and of course, he was Irish, as you know. Well, not everybody knows that, but he was, and he'd been educated in Trinity, and he actually was part of the Irish ascendancy, although his mother was Catholic. But he understood how that would actually benefit England. So it was really a tragedy that Ireland, that England didn't learn something from the American Revolution and think, well, I don't know, the Americans have a point. Why don't we become... And when you read Edmund Burke, that's what he was saying. He represented Bristol. So he represented a trading city, although they fired him because he opposed slavery. And they said, well, if we elect you, you do what we tell you. He says, no, you elect me, I do what I think is right. And that became a big controversy. But anyway, so it really was a tragedy that it all ended up in the most horrific war, and horrific. It was bad for everybody. And let me just take a quick look before she's given me the sign there. So let me just make sure that I haven't missed any really important point. Just to go back over them again. The role of the Irish in Washington's army, they had to withdraw the troops. The fact, one thing that I didn't, if I may take a minute, one thing that I didn't kind of develop that I probably should have was, and this is actually I have to develop this. This is very important, that the Irish Parliament, landlord and Tory and Whig. You know the difference between Tory and Whigs. Tories were like the landed gentry, the old Anglican old money. Whigs were the new money. And that's the history of Britain, England Parliament throughout that period. So the mixed parliament, I would call it, in Dublin, used the volunteers as a threat to England. Once they had them up, they actually very cleverly, because now they had an army, they had literally their own army, and they won a large degree of legislative independence for Ireland in 1782. So as a direct result of the Irish having to form the volunteers and protect, supposedly against America, but against the French or whoever. And the English had to reluctantly give them a large level of, it's known as in Irish history as Grattan's Parliament. But it was the great glory days of Ireland, actually.